Hi everyone, Sam Bowden here, and what I'm going to do today is address a topic that I said a little while ago I'd video, so I apologise for the delay. However, better late than never. Now, what I'm hearing again and again is there are so many adverts for vets, I'm just not going to find a vet. And the concern is I've got more work than I can handle, we're flat out, can't find a vet. This is causing a lot of overwhelm and quite frankly, people just don't know what to do. So I'm going to ask you a question. What if that was the permanent state of affairs? If it was always going to be short on vets? Then you'd have to assume that the current model we've got for running vet practices is actually flawed. Now, I can't see the vet shortage problem being fixed overnight. So sometimes adversity is actually opportunity in disguise. Now, I want to share with you what I've been thinking about and what I believe is the way of the future in vet practice. And it's this. How could you create a vet practice that could turn over $2 million per one full-time vet equivalent per year? So that means a vet doing 38 hours a week. How would you have to set up a clinic that vet could sustainably do $2 million in a year of revenue? Let me draw it out for you. So I'm going to put some maths to it first, and you're welcome to pull the maths apart and check it for yourself. And please understand this is a very rough kind of a modeling I'm using because we don't have any data to have been tested yet. However, I think you're going to see at the end of it that it's quite an obvious opportunity or quite an obvious solution to a current model. So let's just start by putting a few figures to it. So if we're going to do $2 million a year, I'm going to just break it down to make it really simple for the maths and say that's around about $8,000 per day per full-time equivalent vet. So if we're doing $8,000 a day, I'm going to make some assumptions. We're going to say $230 is our average invoice value. Now I'm just working on the vets here. So they're billing out $230, which if you look at a vet's average invoice, that's completely doable. We have people within our mastermind group doing literally double that is the average invoice value. However, let's assume a reasonable figure so you don't think this is pie in the sky. Well, if we're going to do that, you're going to have to generate about 35 invoices per vet at this per day to get you $8,000. Okay, so we've got a 38-hour working week. There's a couple of other things you're going to have to realise. Obviously, the ratio of support staff to vets going to need to increase. So I think you're going to need to look, if you're really getting this thing humming along, at a ratio of 4, what I call super nurses per vet. You need 4-to-1 ratio. Now, you're not going to start there, but you're probably going to build to that. I think over that, for these super nurses per vet in a consult scenario, I think the logistics might start getting challenged. So there's some basic figures to be able to work it on. If we do those figures, we know it'll work. So how is it that we can generate 35 invoices? Well, think about how much time that a vet's actually doing just the thing that they legally have to do, which is diagnose, prescribe, and cut and surgery. How much actual time? There's a lot of time in getting history. There's a lot of time in building rapport with clients. There's a lot of time in holding a dog while a blood's being taken or getting some x-rays or waiting for an animal anaesthetist. All these sort of things. If you could eradicate all those from a day and just keep a vet producing without them having to write up clinical notes, etc., all those sort of things, your productivity of vets will go through the roof. And there's a saying that if you want a better answer, ask a better question. And here's the question that sort of led me to this. How could I double or triple my productivity of vets without needing another vet? So how could I triple what we're charging, they're turning over per vet at the moment, without needing another vet. Now, there's lots of vets doing $700,000 of turnover per vet. So tripling that would give us our 2 million. How do we do that? Let me draw it out for you now. To give you, because you're going to actually need to change a few things. One's going to need to change the philosophy of the business. And the change in philosophy of the business is this. Currently, the rapport or the emotional asset within the business is actually the relationship between the vet and the client. What we need to do is shift that the emotional asset moves from the vet, who is, they're the kink in the pipe, they're the slowest part, that's what's slowing everyone down. The vet, move it from the vet to a super nurse, to the support team. So the people's attitude is, I'm not coming to see Sam the vet, I'm coming to see Sam's vet clinic. The vet is literally the technician in the process. They are not the ones spending all the time with the client and developing the rapport there. It is important that the rapport is developed because, of course, people will go back where they know, like, and trust you. So we've got to develop that rapport. But we just don't want vets doing it because we need to leverage them because they're the shortest thing in demand. They're the thing that's short in supply and they're in demand. Well, we've got to find a way around them. So let me work you, so that's the shift in mindset. Let me work you through the sort of logistics of workflow. So this is Sam's 101 kind of design. And here's how it works. So the client walks in here, and of course, what I would do is go to a self-check-in. And the self-check-in would literally be, and you might have two of them, you know, scales here, scales there, two iPads, and the client comes in and goes tap, 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 check in, puts the weight in, they're done. This is what they're using in human GP practices. I've seen them. There's one at Robina. I walked in, I was like, wow, the receptionists are just spending time talking to the clients. I would actually get rid of the reception desk altogether. And instead of that, I'd have couches. This would be your retail here. It's a bit hard to see. This would be retail along this wall. Could have retail around here. But I'm trying to remove the waiting room scenario. In order to make this model work, you have to make sure that all four of what we call Hilly's boxes, which is a friend of mine, Tim Hill, developed this way of making decisions, is you want to, in order to go ahead with a decision, you want to make sure that all the major players win, which means the business or the business owners, the clients, the team, and the pet. So imagine this, client comes in and they don't have to sit around a reception holding their dog or their cat while other dogs are puffing and panting and getting excited and scratching on the floor. What if that was removed? And here's how it works. These are your consult rooms. So we've got consult room named. And the way that I'd see it coming is the super nurse, and we call them super nurses because they are going to have to learn and be upskilled to quite a high level. And I'll tell you why. Client comes in, super nurse goes out, brings the client into their own consult room. You could even have a way of having the pet's name and the client's name. So you're going to see Tigger Bowden is up here on the door, like on a screen that's digitally put in, that automatically comes from your self-check-in to here, room 1. You know, when they type in their name in here, they're automatically allocated to a room. And they come in and they're walked in with their care nurse. The care nurse or the super nurse then goes through and does the history. I mean, if you want to, you could put scales and all, then they can do the weighing in there to make it easy. They take the history. They go through and make all of the preventative. They go through and make all their preventative recommendations, the fleas, the ticks, the worms, when was it last vaccinated, when was it wormed, etc. So they're gathering all this knowledge, which takes some time, but do it in an environment that they've got time to do it and build that rapport with the client. Now, when they're ready, they hit a button on the wall, which then lights up a green light that shows up outside in this general area. By the way, the reason we have this in a U shape like this and not just one long corridor is we're trying to reduce the number of steps a vet would take in the day because the vet is the pinch point. So we're trying to leverage them and make them as efficient as possible. So when the vet has finished with one consult, they come out and they go, okay, this one's green, we're ready to go. And they just literally pop in where the green light is. Now the second thing you'd need is a timer. So when this green light goes on, and you've seen these outside waiting rooms, you see them on computers, how long so-and-so's been waiting, the vet can walk out, look up and go, okay, I've got 2 green lights, one's been waiting 2 minutes, one's been waiting 7 minutes, I'm going to the 7-minute one first. They walk in there, do their clinical assessment, hire the client, have a conversation with the care nurse who's staying there. Care nurse says, I've recommended this and this and this, these are the histories, etc., etc., which allows the vet to really get straight on to just being the technician, the diagnosis. Hi, Mrs. Jones, great to see Snowy. So you've got this problem. They can ask the few more questions they're going to need to find out from the history, to find out, allow them to make their diagnosis. And then they tell their treatment plan to the nurse. It could be, we're going to need to admit them. Can you please go through and do up an estimate for what it would be for a day's? We need to do this blood test and a dexamethasone suppression test, etc. So they can give their diagnosis, give the treatment plan, and then they walk out the door. And the nurse takes over and starts doing all that with the client. So if it's a blood test, you could have a lab down here, or you might even have a laboratory up here. Blood tests are done, it's run, client gets to sit in there, go in the consult room, comfortable by themselves, fantastic. When they're finished, the care nurse processes the payment. So literally you can do this off mobile phones. Bang, 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 scan, done. Payment's taken, client then leaves. No going to the front desk, because the front desk becomes a pinch point. It also becomes uncomfortable. You're standing at the front desk, dog's scratching away trying to get out, client's trying to listen to instructions and hold the dog and pay for their services. What if it's all done in here? You can see the client winning here, you can see the pet being less stressed and winning in here as well. Literally what we've allocated is, in this scenario, 5 minutes for the vet to actually do their diagnosis and say what the treatment plan is. The super nurse actually takes over and explains the procedure. So instead of the vet having to sit there and explain the procedure, the super nurse explains the procedure. We're doing a cruciate surgery. I'm going to pull out some diagrams here and walk you through and show you how to do it. So of course this means the super nurse is going to need to be trained to a much, much higher level. They can't diagnose, they can't prescribe, but they can explain what's involved in the procedure. And then, so once they're finished, the nurse then writes up all the clinical notes. I mean, don't get me started on notes. How many hours a week are you as a vet spending writing notes? Multiply that over 5 vets. You've probably got 3/4 of a vet just writing notes if you do your actual time. They don't need to. Clinical nurse can do it all there. You can use voice recognition. There's so many ways of using technology to free up the vet's time. Imagine a vet that didn't have to write notes. Maybe at the end of the day they can scan, yep, that's fine, that's not quite right, I'll change that. Maybe imagine that. They didn't have to talk money. Who does that? The super nurse. Imagine the vet not having to give the vaccination. In some states, it doesn't have to be the vet to give the vaccination. They authorise the vaccination to be given, and it's given them by the super nurse. You think about the amount of time that could be saved if the vet is literally giving direction and everything's being done by this super nursing team. So client has it gets paid in here and client then leaves. Now if there's retail, the care nurse can go out and walk through them. It's personalised. Walk through, shows them the products, recommends this one, and then can then go and build it up and do it all. So vet finishes one, bang, straight over the next one. Now, we need to do 36 of these invoices a day. Sorry, it's actually 35 a day in order to get you $8,000. Well, that's not really that hard if there's no downtime for the vet at all doing all these other areas. Now, of course, down the bottom, it's based on the same thing. Animal comes in, we've got our cages here, theatre 1 and 2 with a nurse station, so vet is just working these two. How efficient are they? There's no waiting around for another animal being knocked out or prepped. They're ready to go. They're ready on the table to go. And this is the way of thinking that this is a completely doable scenario. Imagine 2 vets. You've got one working here, one working here. Can you imagine how much you could turn over per day? And can you imagine how much the vet would enjoy it? They're just doing the technical stuff. No sitting down at a computer and going, right, get my 2 fingers out and start tapping away. So who wins in this scenario? Let's work our way through it. In this model, I've allocated that you could pay a vet, if you look at your figures, you can pay a vet At least $200,000 a year. You can pay a super nurse 80 plus K per year. So financially, vets are winning. We're removing the stuff they don't want to do. Nurses are winning because they're being paid more and they're getting to do more, which is what they want to do. Mostly, you see a nurse that's been empowered to do more, they love it. So the chance of them staying around longer is better. Number 3, the pet. Does the pet win? Of course. Because they're getting this less stress environment, better workload. Number 4, does the client win? Of course. It's personalised. I mean, this is talking point stuff. A client walks into this, what are they going to do? They're going to go and talk to someone down the road and go, wow, it was extraordinary. The metric I would look here is your client appreciation metric. 1 to 10, how much did they appreciate the service there? And we have a process for actually measuring that. So, in a nutshell, that's where I believe the future is going to be in the veterinary industry. Because I can't see this challenge of there's not enough vets with our current model. I can't see that getting fixed overnight. And I think this model actually fixes a lot of the challenges in our industry. It would allow vets to last longer in the industry, get less burnt out. And what we do know is that pet care is becoming more and more affordable purely because of things like wellness plans and insurance and etc. And as pets, as you've recently seen, have become a lot more expensive just to buy, the value of a pet is getting bigger. I saw a statistic that by, I think it was 2025 or 2030, I think it was 2025, there will be more couples without children than with children in Australia. So they still have the need to express love with some way. What's that going to be? It's going to be a pet. So the value of those pets is going to become more and more, and we're already seeing that. So this would, people are going to want that real caring experience. And I think that this model is going to allow everybody to win. If I was starting a clinic from day one, guess what? This is the thing I would do. Vets wouldn't bill. Vets wouldn't write up notes. Vets wouldn't have to do anything they didn't legally do. And I would design the system to allow it from step 1. Now, if this sounds like a good idea to you, but all seems too confronting, the reason it's confronting is you don't know how, and it's because you don't have the mindset or you don't have the strategies. And if you want to, we're more than happy to have a yarn to you, and of course we have programs that can help you with that. But I just wanted to put this out there and start changing the way our industry is thinking, because I truly believe that there's an opportunity here that no one's really looking at yet, but it fixes most of the challenges of our industry. Good luck. Post a comment. I'd love your thoughts on it. Pull it apart. Let's have a good old debate. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm starting a conversation that I think is going to help, and I'd love you to join in that conversation.